I would use him as a sounding board for things. And when I showed him how thorough your budget was, he's like, there's always best laid plans. But the thing that spoke to us was the point that, he said it's more typical for budgets to be, like the going thing in the industry is, but you need to expect 10 to 20% above whatever the quoted price is. And I remember one of our very first conversations with you is that you guys view that as like unnecessary, that if you're budgeting appropriately enough, you should be able to come within a percent or two of whatever the budgeted cost was. And when I showed how thorough the budget was to my business partner, he's like, yeah, this is much more thorough and exact likely than typical. And we never once had, well, now this costs this much, this costs that much. So it made us more comfortable making, for us, the biggest, most impactful financial decision of our lives to this point, to allow ourselves to rebuild, as opposed to just like the ease with which moving. Now, it wasn't super easy. We had to move out for 9 months to another house, paying rent, like all these other sorts of things. But looking back at it now, we wouldn't change it at all.
That's awesome. Anything to add there, Jacqueline? That's okay. That's awesome. And I'm being mindful of time here, Pete. I know that you spent a lot of time in the planning and design process. Is there anything that you would have done differently in the planning and design process if you could have done it again?
I think we would both agree. Like, we were recommended an architect, but they weren't from or didn't work in the Toronto area often. So that created some hiccups. So that was frustrating. So I guess if people are looking to do this in this area, I would try to pick, an architect that works in Toronto with the bylaws and kind of understands the nuance with it all. But we had a designer that we paid for the plans, and we kind of executed it and sourced stuff on our own within our budget. And that was so helpful, those pictures to help design the house. I'm not sure if there's anything else.
I mean, the one thing I'd add is, for us, it was, and I know we made this very clear to Ryan throughout, is we had a very specific amount of money available that we were comfortable spending. And it's just like, there isn't additional room for us to have X amount of money over. And so because of that, it made us make some decisions at the initial planning phase that were essentially made out of necessity. As a good example is what Jacqueline said. We interviewed a number of designers. Some of them will charge 6, 8, 9% of the total build cost, which is totally reasonable if they're involved through every step of the way, et cetera, versus we found somebody that we liked her work. She was new to the industry, and we just kind of paid her piecework just to make drawings for us with recommendations that we were easy to follow. And then talking with your dad and yourself to come up with different ideas in regards to staying within the budget that we had available. Like, probably the biggest one, if you remember, was when we initially had the drawings done, and even when we submitted them to the city, we were going to underpin. But through that 3 or 4 year period that we were off, the cost to underpin had skyrocketed. And so we needed some sort of a solution with which we would gain ceiling height. I'm 6'2". I have no idea how big my kids are going to be, but we needed some ceiling clearance. We built a gym in the basement. And I don't want to say what we fell back on, but the solution or resolution ended up being just lifting the main floor up instead, because we were going to replace the floor joist anyway. So we have an extra step in the house, but it allowed us extra clearance space. So working with somebody that's able to come up, like Vince, who, I don't know how long your dad's been building houses, but it's certainly been a long time. It's just like, he has ideas even based on the architect drawings or the other things where he's like, well, why did they put this here? Or why, have you thought of doing this? Or, we had a bathroom door, as an example, off of a landing halfway up the stairs, because that's what one of our neighbors had. And we're just like, yeah, that looks good. And he looked at it and was like, well, why the heck isn't this just on the main floor? And we're just like, yeah, why isn't that on the main floor? And just like sort of things like that for somebody that can see things that way. So I thought that was very, very helpful too. But to Jacqueline's point, the only real significant hiccups we had along the way was caused by not having a local architect. So I would say that that's something we would definitely if we had to do it over again, we'd use somebody that was East Toronto familiar for sure.